Welcome back to the Golden Alternative Investment Show. My name is Kerry Stevenson. I'm going to bring you somebody pretty fun to be around at the moment. He's always been fun to be around. My friend Tolga Kumova. Now he says he's just an investor, but the reason I'm bringing him on today is because we've been mates since back in the mid 2000s. Goodness me, where's the years gone, Tolga?
Hi, mate. It's flown, Kez. It's flown.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give a little bit of your backstory because the first time I met Tolga, I was down in Melbourne. I was running a mining event, and I was actually with a broking firm at that stage. They just didn't seem to be looking after me. I was just another number, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw this young guy, and he's on the phone and he's hustling for his clients and he's doing stuff, and I'm watching him come in and out. And I walked up to you at the end of it and I said, we need to have a conversation, because in my view, anybody that is literally had the energy that you had and that worked hard for their clients, I said, that's the kind of person I want to be around, not just because of what you were doing for your clients, but it was your energy. It was I can't describe it. It's an inner energy that you have. You always have had it. Well, not always, because I didn't know you when you were a young kid, but to me, it was that wonderful energy that you had. So today I just want to talk about those early days and then just move on to where you are today, because it's a fun story.
It is.
And it's had its ups and downs. So
it's had its ups and downs. It hasn't been fun the whole time, Kerry.
Well, we know. There's we've seen you in the good and the bad. But listen, let's talk about how you got into broking, because why did you get into broking? A little bit about your backstory.
I think going back to when I was a kid. But before we start, I want to thank you for the kind words, honestly. And we've been friends since, I think it is 2006. And I do remember that presentation. You had 4 or 5 companies up on stage. And I actually felt like I was being rude, because every time my phone was ringing, I think I was working on some transaction at the time. I was out, and I had the most demanding clients. It wasn't just me, my clients were demanding of me, and I loved it. It was passionate. They were passionate about the market. So yeah, once you're around people who are passionate about what they're doing, you kind of, it just becomes infectious. So if I was being infectious to you, it's because people I was associated with as well were that way. But yeah, thank you for your words and your friendship for all these years. Why did I get into broking? I wanted to be a currency trader when I was a kid. So I was already, when FX traders are already manic, right? So probably describes my personality a little bit in terms of the way I do things. But I was 11 or 12 years old, 13 years old, something like that. And I would have a book when I was a child. And at the end of every news, Channel 9, Channel 7, when they do the news, they have the prices of the currencies. And they put the flag there and they put a price on the side of it. And I would actually, most people don't know this, it's kind of weird, but I would actually keep a note of what the price of Japan was and what the price of America was. In my brain as a kid, I thought I could buy the country. So, but 1 million yen, you could buy Japan. So I was always pricing a country. So I was always intrigued by markets in that sense. Then I worked in fruit markets. So I was interested in marketing. So I hate to say it, sitting there and being the spruiker and understanding how to make a market is something I learned at the age of 14. So I was spruiking tomatoes and bananas and all that stuff. I was a little kid on a crate that was making sure everything got sold. So I knew a little bit about economics, but the moment in my life, and everyone's probably got this moment, which pushed me to genuinely want to work in finance. When going through high school, I was biology, chemistry. I was a science guy. So my maths was my thing. But I was late applying for one of my classes and for chemistry. And the teacher said, look, I need to do economics. And I was like, economics? I was like, I thought home ec. Well, I'm not going to do home ec. That's what was going through my head. I'm going to make pies and pasties and stuff. I was like, no, that's not me. Yeah. But they put me in the economics class. And I had this teacher who made me fall in love with supply and demand. Like I became obsessed with how it worked. And I did really well. I think I topped the state in economics that year, 1997, 98. And then
Tolga, do you think the teacher makes all the difference in that sort of a situation? If you'd had a bad teacher at that stage, you could have just switched off and never gone down this road. Do you think
oh,
it's important?
110%. I mean, it's people around you that inspire you. You know, people say, "Oh, how'd you get lucky?" I got lucky because the people in my life, like at every step, I don't know if it was me that did it to them or it was them that did it back, that I may have inspired them, but they definitely inspired me. This teacher made me so passionate. I wanted to be in his class. I wanted to be around him. I wanted to listen to him. I wanted to learn. And I wanted to impress him as well. So I wanted him to know that I was actually paying attention. He was that type of person. Yeah, I later went back to that school to try and find this guy to give him a bonus. And he passed away from cancer, unfortunately. But yeah.
Oh, what a that I was going to ask you if you'd gone
Yeah.
back and told him what a influence
Yeah, no.
he had.
He'd had a massive influence in my life, which is I was really sad. I was looking forward to being able to, thank a guy that had that much of an impact on me. Yeah, so no, that happened, and then instead of doing computer science degree, which is what I wanted to do, that's what I was doing with science subjects, and that was where I wanted to end up. I did banking and finance at Monash University.
Okay.
So studying that was once that step, and then and I've told this story before, but I'll say it again. There was a Korean man and I owned a car wash. So me and my best mate, who is now an auctioneer on the block.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's also been very successful in life. He was my best friend growing up, and we're always passionate about doing business. And we were 18 years old. We're the two youngest leaseholders at a Westfield anywhere. At 18 years old, we had a car wash at Doncaster Shopping Centre, and every Saturday there's this Korean man would come in and we'd talk about stuff. And he had this green, and Sammy will remember this as well. He had this green M5 that we both loved, and he was talking about stocks, and he just spoke about this one particular one, and I called Cenitas. I bought it at 19 cents, and I sold it at $1.60 on his recommendation. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. He was just advising me. And I thought, how easy is this? I want to be doing this with my life. Someone's been hiding this from my family, because my parents obviously don't know anything about the stock market. Dad's a taxi driver. Mum was on disability pension. So I was like, wow, I've made all this money, and I didn't really work very hard for it. And this car wash, which does okay, but this is like big chunks of money, which I've never had. My family's never had. And I got hooked at that point. And the gentleman, I never forget, he told me not to buy any more shares, and I didn't listen. And because this was 2000 leading to 2001, so it was a 2000 tech crash happened and I sold the stock, then it crashed, and he was telling me, do not touch it, don't do anything. Me thinking I'm a gun, because I'm like,
because you're a boy and you're 18,
the testosterone fueled kid that's like, I can do this better than anyone. Went and bought some shares. I can't remember what it was. I do remember the code, but it just doesn't exist anymore. And the company went from, I think it was like 12 cents to 4 cents in like 5 days. So wow. I'd torn up probably 25% of what I'd made following this guy's recommendations. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I shouldn't do this. But I didn't stop. And I invested in a thing called Regis. And Regis was like, this is years later. This is the years have passed. I came back. I was always interested in the stock market. And I bought shares in a thing called Regis Resources. And it was 10 or 11 cents at the time. And they had, I can't remember the name of the project, Mount Well, I think it is. Not Well.
No, it's not Mount Well.
No, not Mount Well. Oh, it's going to kill me. It's in WA. Oh, it will come to me.
It's a WA gold project, and for the life of man, and Regis are going to kill us for not knowing it.
Yeah, I think it's Moolart Well that they had from memory. And you'd have to correct me. And the company and I was really excited about the asset. It looked amazing. I was like, this will make money with a little information that I had and a little knowledge I knew about markets and mining. And I sat there, I think for about 2 years, and nothing happened. I kept calling the MD. He didn't really care, wasn't really paying attention to me. And then management changed. But I'd sold it just as management was changing, because I was tired of waiting. It was, I think it went from 11 cents to 15 cents. And I was like, oh, look, I made some money on now. And the thing's like $5. whatever Regis share price is.
Yeah, about four, but just a tad over 4. It's had a bit of a pullback, but it'll go back to 5. Yep.
Yeah. So I went through the roof, and I remember sitting there going, "Oh my God, I could have just held these things. It could have been, I know I had believed in it, but you needed a management chain, a different set of eyes to actually bring forward, or find and exploit the quality of the asset." So then I was applying for jobs in stockbroking. I wanted anything, like any job.
Why stockbroking, Tolga? First of all, why stockbroking? Why not sort of banking, or why not something else? You just, because you liked, because you're now hooked on that sort of the psychology of investing, making some money, you thought, well, I'll be a stockbroker and that way I can see the bigger market.
Yeah. Well, just information. Like, as a stockbroker, if you've got the right attitude, you can get, you meet everybody, you listen to everybody. There's people all around you all the time. If you're in one of those stockbroking firms, little companies are coming to present all day, every day.
Yeah.
And that was one of my conditions. Like, one of the things that my CEO at the time, Russell, well, it wasn't my CEO, the guy who was in charge of Russell McKim, he's chairman of the Australian Institute of Stockbrokers, the Stockbrokers Association. He basically put a rule on me that when I started off as an assistant, I had to go to every single meeting, every single presentation in the firm. Doesn't matter what it was, I had to listen to it. And I just kind of kept that as a sort of a rule to myself, because you never knew who was going to walk through the door with what idea and what opportunity. There'd be times where you sit there and go, "This is actually just a waste of my time. It's a yawn." And then there'd be times you're like, "Well, actually, it looks interesting, but the probability of succeeding is not that high." And then every now and then you get one opportunity that come up during these meetings, going, "This thing has got a nothing market cap, and this guy's on something. If he hits what he says he's going to do, you're going to make 20, 30 times your money, and your downside's half." I'm like, I'm going to put money in this. I'm going to call my clients. I'm going to put money in this. I'm going to offer this guy a placement. So it's.
But you weren't, and these are mainly mining companies, are they, at the time?
Majority of them. And the reason why it was mostly mining companies, and this is where I got my education. I didn't study geology. I was lucky enough to make a network of friends and a network of clients. So this is another thing that happened as a result of going to every one of these meetings. I'd sometimes usually be the only person in these meetings, listening to these junior explorers, because no one actually cared. And I'd end up signing that guy up as a client. Now, that guy's usually got 20 years experience as a geologist, probably worked in the field, worked on assets that have actually been developed and built. So I was learning from them more about their lives and what they've been through and what's worked for them. But they'd end up becoming clients. So I had this database of geologists, mining engineers, whether it be construction guys, metallurgists, would be my client base. So what happened then? I was fortunate enough to build that database, but there's a couple of guys I should talk about actually. There was a guy named Peter Topham, Richard Morrow, Barry Fitzgerald, and there was a couple others, but I won't go into detail. But they're the guys that run the Melbourne Mining Club.
Yeah.
With Richard Shoddy. Yeah, there's a couple of them. And these guys run the Melbourne Club. And they were part of the group that would come in. Tom Eady, they would come into my office, and I became friends with them. I kept picking their brain, and they obviously saw something in me, the way I was acting, the way I was treating them, the way I was trying to gather information, trying to learn, that it probably inspired them. And I would get invited to their lunches and their dinners and their drinks. And effectively, I got my education in geology and in mining, effectively just hanging out and getting drunk with these guys.
Wow.
And this is like a weekly thing. I'd go to lunch with them probably once or twice a week. So I was fortunate enough to be accepted by them. And because I was accepted by them, by that circle, especially in Melbourne, I got access to all sorts of knowledge that they gathered over 30 years or 40 years. And I still use them. Like, I still pick their brains. I still talk to them every other day. So I was kind of lucky. Yeah, and it goes back to this. I say lucky. This is how I see myself as lucky. You know, when you go to people, "Oh my God, that guy got lucky." I'm lucky because people allowed me to get information and knowledge that they've gathered and access to their brains over 30, 40 years of being in this industry. But so that's where my luck comes from.
Yeah, but I also think that if you have a curiosity, if you have an inquiring mind, I think there's a lot of people out there that sit back and want things to come to them.
Yeah.
Whereas the difference with you is that you're going out and you're inquiring and you're curious and you're asking questions, and you've got a group of people around you that, as you say, they got a lot more experience. So I'm going to ask them all the questions.
But everyone says the word lucky. I reckon, my personal opinion, the word people, you don't get lucky on your own. You just don't. People make you lucky. If you're, I'm going to not use expletives, but if you're an idiot, if you're rude, if you're disrespectful, if you're going out of your way to harm someone, if you're going to make someone else's life difficult for no reason, and they don't really deserve it, then you're not going to get lucky. People around you are not going to treat you with the respect that you want. They're not going to treat you the way you want to be treated. They're not going to give you the opportunities that you think you deserve or want. They're not going to give it to you. If you're disrespectful, I'm not going to spend time with you. Why would anyone else?
Yeah.
So you're not going to get lucky on your own. Nothing happens. You need people in life.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm lucky, because I've got all this network of people that I've created, including yourself. Over my life, even when, the thing is, there's one piece of advice. When someone's done the wrong thing, you don't really have to rub it in their face either. Like, at some point,
agree with you.
You don't have to rub it in their face. And when I say the wrong thing may have been something went wrong. There was a mistake in their life, something issue. I don't know, their wife left them, or their kids have gone off the rails, or something's happened that they may have made a mistake. You don't want to rub it in their face, because if you do, everyone around you is going to go, well, if something went wrong in my life, I'm not going to hang around that guy. I don't want to speak to that girl. Why would I want them near me? Because they're going to bury me in 2 seconds as well. So you're not going to get lucky. And that's what I say about people. And I use Tunks as an example. Like, yes, the guy's had issues in the traumas and things haven't gone right. Guy kept standing up, and he wasn't rude. He wasn't being mean. He hasn't been thinking. He's like, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. Eventually, he's going to get lucky. It just will. Someone like me will be like, I'm going to keep backing you until you find something or you do something.
Right.
That's what I do. And that's called, and eventually, for some reason, I get lucky.
The luckier they get, the luckier I get. Have you come across people in your career? And let's just close off the sort of the stock. So you went into stockbroking. You started getting an understanding of the resources. You've got good people around you, but you don't stay in stockbroking.
What I figured was a lot of the guys coming through my office doing presentations. A lot of them weren't great as directors, as CEOs, as MDs. And I could see, and the biggest issue most of these people had was they just weren't able to raise money. And that's in junior mining, you don't have cash, you can't drill, you can't do things, you can't build, you can't do this stuff, right? So you can have all the dreams you want. But if you didn't have a right network of people around you to access capital, then you don't really have that much. You can't do anything. So there's not growth. And people complain about companies doing cap raises. You should be excited that your company's done a cap raise. Excited, ecstatic, because then they can go and do something. Then there's going to be catalysts. So what happened with me is I did Doré Minerals with at Shores. Then I sold my stake because there was a number of reasons, and I won't go into them because I don't want to mock anybody.
You don't have the time.
No, but I sold my stake and I sold my client's stakes, and then my clients are like, "Oh, Tolga, you're really good at this. Why don't you go do it again?" And then do it again.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, it's great. And it was like 8 times your money in less than 4 months. So it's like, this is fantastic. Tolga, you're amazing. Got on a plane, went to Africa, was looking at all sorts of stuff, and I went through a bit of details with you before, but a whole bunch of stuff happened, and I
just want to stop you there for a second, because this is back in 2010, 2011. And when you say I went to Africa, he didn't just go to Africa, ladies and gentlemen. He really went to Africa.
Yeah.
You had some hairy moments in your time in Africa.
Yeah. My hairiest moment started on and off. I don't think I've ever told anyone the story, not publicly anyway, but my hairiest moment was actually landing in Africa. So I was in Joburg. I've never been to Africa before. I'm with a geologist that I've hired to come look at stuff with me, and I'm doing deals with him. And we landed at the airport, and I can't find my bag. Like, we've gone through the carousel, and my bag's missing.
Where are you? Where are you? Are you in Johannesburg?
Joburg, yeah.
Joburg, right.
So now I'm walking around the airport, looking for my bag. I'm back at the carousels, like going, where's my bag? I really want it and I really need it. So I don't really have that much money at this point. I've got a bit, but I'm not wealthy. I really want my clothes. All my suits, all this stuff, because I'm going to a conference at Indaba, there's a mining conference. And so I'm meant to catch the next flight from Joburg to Cape Town. Anyway, this guy's effectively trying to take my wallet. And I'm not the smallest guy. I've just gone right hook, knocked him out. He's laid out. And I'm like, my God, what have I done? This guy's trying to steal my wallet. I'm like, shit, just grab what you got, Tolga, and run. So I run to the gates. I go to the lady at the counter. Look, I need to get on the next flight to Cape Town. I don't care what it costs. Get me on it. I'm thinking I'm going to end up in a prison in Johannesburg.
Wow.
Which wouldn't be very nice. And she puts me on the next flight. Cost me, I don't know, like $800 or something, just for a 30-minute flight. I'm sitting on the plane thinking, why is this plane not leaving? I'm sweating, I'm stressed, I'm scared. I'm like, what have I done? And this old gentleman comes and sits next to me. This is a story. And I'm sitting there, and it's an old African guy with white hair, and the plane's been held up for him. So it's been waiting for this guy. And he's come and sat next to me. And I'm sitting next to him. And we get started talking. He's just asking questions. The plane pushes back. So I'm like, yes,
I won't be arrested and thrown into prison.
I'm not going to prison. And starts asking me questions. We're having a conversation. And I tipped the kid. It was a young black guy who was serving us food and drinks. And he gave me an extra couple of bottles of, of bourbon. And so I'm sharing with this guy. I'm having a chat. And he's asking me all these questions about what I do. And I said, and the reason why I went to Africa at this point was I was looking at an Ethiopian gold project up in a place called Tulikapi in Western Ethiopia. And I'm looking at doing a deal. I'm going to raise the funds, I'm going to put the management together. So I'm doing what I normally do. This is what I'm planning on doing originally. And he's asking me 101 questions, all about the social aspects, what I've done before, how I've done it before, what kind of team, what people that I bring. Also, he's asking me everything you need to know about building a mine in a jurisdiction like Ethiopia. And we're about to land. We're about 3 or 4 minutes away. And I asked this guy, I was like, mate, what do you do? And he looked at me, he's like, he's shaking his head real quiet and staring at me with his big gleaming eyes. And he smiles, pulls out his business card. Minister of Mining, Ethiopia.
What are the bloody chances? And you never asked him early on. You just...
I'm like, this guy's really interested in what I'm doing. And the lady next to us is like, you must be one of the luckiest son alive. And I'm like, did this really happen? I'm just staring at his card. And
yeah, I bet you were.
I'm staring at his card. I'm looking up and I'm like, this is serendipity. Is it fate? I don't know how to explain it. And I was like, dude, I think I need your help. And he's like, look, you know what? When you're done with the conference, get in a plane, come to Ethiopia, come to my office, and we'll go through this together. And we'll look at all the different projects that are in Ethiopia because there's lots of opportunities. Anyway, do you know what was the funniest part? So I get off the plane. I'm like, what the hell happened? How did this happen? I'm now almost thought I was going to prison. Knocked a guy out. I sit on the plane, talk to a dude, and he turns out to be Minister of Mining Ethiopia. And I'm walking past the carousel, and my bag is there.
What
rolling around in Cape Town, just rolling around by itself. And I'm like, this is the most ridiculous day.
That's insane.
So when talk about luck, things just happen. And I talk about my life like this, and everyone's life is probably similar. Sliding doors.
Yeah.
I missed my bag. Someone else has picked my bag up as theirs, put it on the carousel, taken it, obviously logged it in. It gets sent to Cape Town. I almost get my wallet stolen. Guy, I obviously protect myself. And then I sit on a plane, sit next to the Minister of Mining of Ethiopia when I'm trying to finance or looking at doing a deal in Ethiopia. And my bag's there. So I want to talk about sliding doors. Any one of those things could have gone wrong.
Did you stay in contact with the minister for a while? Did you end up doing some deals in Ethiopia as a result of that, or did it all just come to nothing?
I'll tell you what happened. And this is where I struggled with Ethiopia. I spent probably 3 or 4 months there. Every time I went to apply for a piece of land, an exploration land, the part where I was actually interested in, like I put the lodge the application, and they'd obviously know what I wanted. That part would be excised, and someone else would own it the next day. And I kept saying to myself, this is ridiculous. And it happened the next day and the next day. And then I picked a piece of land that had absolutely nothing on it, but I said, I want this part here, but I want to apply for all of it. And it was just random. And again, the next day I came in, it was taken. And what ended up happening is the president was done for corruption. There was a billionaire called Alamudi who was done for corruption. All these people, because I left, I was like, this is just ridiculous. I'm leaving Ethiopia. I'm not doing business there. But they all got this whole chain of command. Every minister, everyone got thrown in prison for being corrupt. So it was obviously systemic, and it were in every single department. But and then I went back there years later, and the guy, this is where it's very interesting. The guy that actually drove me from the mines department to the airport for me to leave had become Minister of Mining.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so the junior underling, because everyone else got sacked. The junior underling was the guy who was in charge. I never went back. I never did any business there. Just the fiscal structure for building a gold.
And you've been, and I guess once you've been burnt in something like that, it's like, well, why would I come back and help you guys?
No, look, I'll be honest with you. I would have gone back. I'm not one of those people. If it had changed enough, I would have gone and spent time there. But it was more just the fiscal regime. I think there was a 5% royalty on all gold operations, which effectively, does a bit of damage to any sort of IRR.
Yeah.
So I just didn't bother, and it wasn't worth the risk. Taking the risk. I've been some ridiculous places in Africa. People talk about experience. It's like, oh, why should I listen to Tolga? You want to come and see the things that I've gone through, the experiences I've seen and done. Well, this didn't happen in 2 minutes. This isn't
people want immediate gratification, and it's not. It takes time. It takes work. Yeah. I guess one of the things that I'd like to ask you is, you've taken risks in your time. Did you always see yourself as being a successful investor? I mean, because there is a psychology, I think, in investing. And look, we don't win them all. You can make mistakes along the way. So I'd like to delve a little bit into, jumping out from a stockbroking firm when you became the managing director of Syra Resources, which did extremely well for a number of years, and then deciding to leave that and go and invest in a number of companies and build your wealth in that way. What was the thinking behind that? And were there times when you went, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah. When you work in a stockbroking firm, and the people that I was working around, and I spent a lot of my time in Perth. Like when I was broking, I would probably be on a plane in WA once a month. And I don't think anyone else at my firm was doing that. Like I would build relationships because the reason why I was doing it, I'd seen a lot of wealth created through investing in junior mining stocks, right? I'm just always around it. The guy that sat across from me was a guy named Gary McKenzie, and he was, when I was broking, his best friend was Owen Hegarty. And this guy was buying stock at 4 cents in Oxiana way back when. And he watched that go from 4 cents to $4. His client made fortune. Lots of them sold lots of stock, made lots of money. Yep. So I was used to seeing this happen. So, but to be able to do those or be involved in those kinds of transactions, you have to be around people that are doing them.
Yeah.
Another guy that kind of inspired me was I don't know which firm he's at right now. I don't know if he works like normally like as clients anymore. He was a stockbroker called Stockley Davis, and which most people won't know. I think he's at Alto Capital, but he was, when I was still an assistant. It was in 2005, I think. And I went to a place called Black Tom's in Perth, which is a little bar pub in West Perth. And it was a Friday night, and there was so many people there, but I kept hearing this guy's voice. He was like everywhere, and he wasn't very tall, but I could just hear him constantly talking about this one thing. It's one thing over and over, and he's talking about this nickel player, this nickel thing, this nickel idea. It was independence. So he was a broker behind independence when independence was an idea. Right. So back in Bonwick, day one, which is why I don't know if he takes clients, he would have made a fortune. but I actually got to speak to this guy. I was like, this is who I want to model myself on. I
Right.
want to be this passionate about an idea, about an opportunity, about people, because he was passionate and you could feel it. The whole room, I could just, this one guy's energy was on me. Obviously, it was very successful. And don't get me wrong, lots of people are very passionate about lots of different stories and do not succeed. I'm just talking about the ones that I've seen, that I've witnessed myself. So that kind of, those moments, those individuals inspired me. Owen Hegarty. This is a
Great
story.
man. Great man, Owen Hegarty.
He's another one of those people in my life that inspired. And he doesn't remember even doing this, right? This is something that he just does. So I'm at a mining conference in the Philippines, and I'm sitting at a table listening to, I can't remember who it was talk. It was someone, but there was no one there. The whole was, there was probably 300 or 400 people that could be sitting in this room, and there was no one actually in the room. I was just by myself, so I didn't want to leave and make it embarrassing, right? So I just sat on the table and I'm like, I'll listen to this guy. All of a sudden, the doors fling open when this guy's finished talking, and people are flying in from everywhere. Like this room's packing up. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I wonder who's talking. On the stage, Owen Hegarty. Which table am I sitting on by chance? Did I just choose?
Owen Hegarty's table.
Oxiana. So now I've got this guy comes and sits next to me. He's wearing a full-on military uniform. He's a Secretary for Defense for Indonesia. And then the guy from Cambodia, Laos. I got all these diplomats sitting around me. And right next to me was
Were you meant to be at that table, Tolga, or did you just walk in and sit down at a random table?
I decided, and then I think it was a guy named Peter Albert or Rob. I can't remember. It was Rob Curtis was there, and I didn't know these guys at this point. I said, "Look, man, I think I'm sitting at the wrong table. Do you want me to leave?" And they're like, "No, just take a seat. You'll be fine. Just chill. It's all right. Like, listen, just you'll learn something." And I looked at him. I was all right. So I'm sitting there. I'm watching Owen Hegarty, and I was like, "Wow, this guy's an amazing presenter. Like, amazing."
Yeah, he is a very good presenter.
I was like, I want to be him. And he's giving this talk about, talking about Cambodia, talking about their copper asset, and he's going through it, and I was like, this is an amazing project. But halfway, this is where he got me. Halfway through his talk, he goes, look, I just want to stop here, because everyone's like on the edge of their seats listening to his presentation. He goes, I just want to stop you here. I would like to congratulate and thank such and such from Indonesia who's made a trip here to listen to us. And there's 1,000 people in this room now, all standing. And he's like, could you please stand up? And so he made the guy next to me stand up. And he goes, can you all please applaud him for the work he's done for Indonesia and stuff? So everyone's, the whole club room's clapping. And he went through each one by one. Laos, Cambodia, all of them, everyone, all the diplomats on this table. And I was like, you are amazing. And you are going to get whatever you want from this guy forever. You have just bought his love.
And his loyalty. Yeah.
That was what I was thinking at that point. He then gets off the stage. And now I'm actually talking to Rob Curtis. I'm like, I'm just meeting him. And he's like, oh, you know what you do? I work at Shaw's, So he's like, he's comfortable with me. I said, look, I'm just an assistant. I'm not even a stockbroker yet. I've paid my own way here to come and look at this thing.
Wow.
To learn. And he says to me, he said, look, I'll just hang on. You should meet Owen. Anyway, Owen comes over. He's talked to all of them, obviously. He comes up to me and he says, no, you're at Shaw's, son. Well, you know what? Why don't you come upstairs, have a drink with us? We'll have a chat. I'm like, come upstairs where? I'm like, I'm just feeling confident. I'm just by myself. I'm like, he goes, no, we've got the suite upstairs, the presidential suite. Come and have a chat. You'll just get to meet some people that are interesting. And I said, are you sure? Look, I'm just an assistant. And he goes, you won't be one day.
Wow.
And I was like, so, okay, well, I'll come along. So I go up to his room and I'm listening to him talk and I'm watching Owen basically work the room. And I was like, this guy is next level. And yeah, I was inspired. And I actually got to speak to him. And like I said, I would just be like a tiniest blip. He wouldn't remember this. This is a tiny...
What do you remember of that? I mean, obviously you told the story, but how did that impact the way, and did it impact the way that you treat people going forward? And did Owen become a little bit of a mentor for you? Because, you're both based in Melbourne, Victoria.
Yeah.
Did you meet up with him after that
Yeah, I met him numerous times after that. I won't say I was a mentor. And I go back to what I was saying earlier about my teacher. It's all serendipity. It's all sliding doors. I had these people that inspired me at every single step of my life. Like Owen did that to me. A guy named Stockley Davis, who wouldn't remember, he didn't even know he was doing it. He did it to me. The guys at Melbourne Mining Club, they did it to me. Richard Morrow, look, all of them. They did these tiny little moments in my life where they didn't have to be nice. They didn't have to give me a chance. They didn't have to do anything. Russell McKim, I gave him opportunities at Shores. He didn't have to do it. I obviously saw something, and I wasn't rude. I wasn't disrespectful. I was always, complimentary, and I still am. I was thoughtful, and obviously they sensed that, and they probably sensed that I'm not going to be. What's what I'm looking for? I'm not going to embarrass them.
Yeah.
So you get lucky. People inspired me. Owen inspired me. Like he didn't have to do that.
And do you find yourself inspired because you've now you left stockbroking, you ran Sara Resources for a while, you're now investing in a number of different companies, of which you've done extremely well. You've been able to help your family. I know you're very close to your mum and your dad.
And my brothers, everybody.
Brothers. Like it's a very strong family unit that is very important to you. Are you now, and I'll come into the polo in a minute, but are you now inspiring others? Do you find that you have people reach out to you and ask you for not advice necessarily, but maybe a little bit of mentoring? Does that happen to you?
When I say I do mentoring, I don't know if I do mentoring, but I do all these things. Like I do all these talks. I put all this stuff up on social media. I do use it because I know that it can, even if it has that tiniest little influence. And I'll tell you a story. There's a guy, I can talk about stories. This is, I was at Diggers and Dealers, and
for those of you that don't know, Diggers and Dealers is probably the largest mining conference held in Kalgoorlie every year. August this year, it was October, but it's big.
Yeah. So I'm at Diggers and Dealers and I'm at the pub and I'm walking through and there's this, all of a sudden I get picked up off the ground. Some guys launched me. I'm like now floating. And there's some big dude, and I'm not small. Like I'm 100 kilos, and this guy just picked me up like I was nothing.
Wow.
And I'm like looking around, going, "What the hell's going on?" I turn around behind me, and there's this guy, this big smile on his face. And I'm like, "All right, mate, you want to put me down?" Turn around, and said, "How you going?" And he's like, "Tolga, you don't know what you've done for me." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You don't know what you've done for me." I said, "I'll elaborate." And he goes, "About 3 years ago, I was on my social media and stuff, and I followed you, and someone told me that you're into mining and stuff." And he goes, "I was going to drill. He was a driller." Right. And this guy started would read all my posts and I was talking about the fact that you can take risks, the fact that you should take opportunities, and all my stuff that I write and I think about is about taking calculated risks. And this guy was like, "Look, me and my brother were reading this thing." He said, "Well, if that guy can do it, his old man was a taxi driver, mum's on the pension, why can't we?" And he goes, and he was telling me this. I'm like, "Why can't you? Why can't you take a calculated risk if you believe yourself, if you back yourself, and you think you're good with people? Because no matter what business you're doing, you need to be good with people."
Absolutely.
And he obviously was. He picked me up off the ground with a big smile. It was great. I'm like, I'm buying whatever he's selling.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just bought this house in Darling Point, and I've just ordered this blue convertible Bentley. And I'm like, "Wait, you've done this in 4 years, 3 years?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "You inspired us, and we went on our own, and we've done incredibly well." And I was like, small moments, little moments, and that's
sliding moments,
sliding doors. It's
let's talk about calculated risk. What is the difference between a risk and a calculated risk?
A risk and a calculated risk. Well, when I go say risk is like I go to a casino, throw in a black, put my chips down. You're risking 50%. Like it's still calculated, but you don't have any influence on the outcome.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't influence what's going on. When I say calculated risk, I'm like looking at so many different variables and I'm looking at my experience that I've had previously,
Yep.
of what's worked and what hasn't. And I'm tapping into the experience of people that have been doing this for 20 or 30 years and asking them all the questions. And usually when I go and buy into something or buy into a company or investment or whatever, I'm just made the decision on my own. I've usually gone to a geologist, a geophysicist, a mining engineer, a metallurgist, and I've gone, okay, what do you guys all think about this? So
Right.
I've gone and done that homework. Will this actually work? Is in the right jurisdiction? You know, speak to a mining engineer. I've done all that work before I get to it. So when I say calculated, I'm like, all right, if they actually find what they think they're going to find,
Yep.
what is the risk that they're not going to find it? Can it actually be a mine? Because if someone in my situation, when I buy 10 or 20% of the company, I ain't coming out. Like I'm effectively there for the ride.
Yeah.
Until they discover something. Yeah, I can sell bits and pieces, but I'm not selling my stock. Like I'm there, especially in these junior mining companies. So I have to believe the management can actually do all of the things that the calculated risks people that I've spoken to that have given me their thoughts and their ideas, can they actually deliver on it? Or can they take it to a certain point and someone else can take it on from there?
Right.
Um,
Is management key to you when investing?
Management's key in the sense that, and I say this is one of my sayings. The man doesn't make the project makes the man, right? You can't change what's in the ground. Like the guy standing on top of it didn't make that copper deposit at 5%. But if it's 5%, he's going to have a lot of, wiggle room. He's going to be making a lot of mistakes, make a lot of errors. He's still going to make a lot of money. But if that deposit's 1%, well, then the man's going to make a massive difference as to how the engineering happens, how the geology structures, all the other metallurgy works, all that sort of stuff. But and that's at a later stage of a deposit or a project. I'm talking about man at the very beginning is critical to me because there's probably a 90% chance that project is not going to work. Like I'm investing in it and I've looked at the probability. There's probably a high probability they're not going to be able to build a mine, right?
Right.
So I need that person to not give up. Because once I'm in for the ride with the guy. So I need him to go, okay, what's next? I need to be able to go, okay, this project's not going to work. And these are the reasons why. And be honest with himself. What are we doing next? What's the next opportunity?
Right.
And if you look at all these big companies, and this is why sometimes it really frustrates me when people say, oh, look, he's a failure. Fortescue, it was a shell. It was a failed shell, Colonial. There's a company I made a lot of money out of for myself and my clients called Papillon. It was a shell.
Yeah.
It was a failed asset. Oxiana, once upon a time, failed shell. Go through them. There are so many failed shells that have now become major companies. Northern Star was a shell, right? These assets. Anyone that's saying to me, oh, that guy failed before. Yeah, great. Let him fail. Fantastic. But you know what? You never know. And if he keeps standing, which is why I say management, if they keep standing, then and they know what they're doing, look at even Steve Parsons.
Yes.
Hate to say it, I can use him as an example.
He won't mind.
No, Ampella didn't go to plan. It just didn't. Right? It just didn't work, and not many people wanted to give him a chance. We had this asset, this vehicle, had those licenses. He's like, Tolga, I think we can find some gold here. Rings me up, said, look, Steve, I actually like him. And everyone was telling me, no, he's not, he hasn't done well before, hasn't worked out before, blah, blah, blah. I was like, give the guy a chance. He knows what he's doing. I know the backstory. And now he's a rock star. Now it's like whatever he touches is amazing, right?
Yeah. And it was the same with Andrew Forrest. I remember being at Diggers and Dealers many years ago, and Andrew was just starting Fortescue up. I just got back to Australia. I think it was 2004, and I knew Andrew from a previous life. And he said to me, have you invested in my company yet? Now, what I did, I listened to all the people around me, yep, I did. And they all said, don't touch Andrew Forrest. He's done it
Anaconda,
before.
Right? Anaconda. You know who funded
all
Andrew?
They told me about.
Do you know who bought it all? American hedge funds. They bought all that stock. They bought everything they believed in. They made a fortune. Yeah. Because everyone in Australia was like, oh, he's a failed guy because Anaconda didn't work. That's all rubbish. Yeah. Look at the dude. He learnt. He got an education and he went again. And look at him now. Now he's telling the Prime Minister of Australia what to do.
Exactly.
He's buying RM Williams. He's a legend now, isn't he? Yeah.
Well, what about you? Have you had any big failures that you can share or want to share, I guess, because we're running out of time,
Yeah.
with people that would potentially help them? I mean, you just said, failure is not, it's not a bad thing. It's so long as you learn from it, and those that fail and get up and go again are probably more than likely to succeed.
My biggest sort of success is just timing.
Right.
But it's also been my biggest negative as well. And I'll use Syrah as an example. I built that mine in 6 years, where usually an operation like that, from the time you find it to the time you build it, is at least 10.
At least.
At least 10. I did it too quick. So I was designing it and building it specifically to feed the Gigafactory. And I was listening to everybody in the world saying in 2013, 2014, I was like, oh my God, electric vehicles are going to be commonplace in 2017.
Yeah.
They're going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to build combustion engines anymore. I listened to everybody else. Volkswagen saying I was spending $20 billion in an electric battery plant. All these guys made all these bold statements, but I literally did it 4 or 5 years too early. And that's probably been, when I say failure, it's probably, I built the mine, I succeeded in my goal. But in terms of timing, that plant should probably turn on now. It should have been built now, should have come into operations as we speak. But my biggest failure, I don't see them as failures. This is the thing. Like, my failures, I've learned so much from them. Like, when I lost my parents' money, I learned from that. Like, it was devastating. The world's coming to an end. And am I more risk averse when it comes to who I deal with, which firms I deal with? Yeah, hell yeah, I am. Yeah. Do I get to pick my brokers really well? Can I know which ones work for me and which ones don't, and which ones are for the right sort of part of the cycle in the environment we're in? Yeah, I know which ones work and which ones don't. Yeah. I'd say I've learned a lot, and most of my companies, like, I kind of expect some of them to fail. I'm well aware of it. It's going to happen. So I don't even get the ups and downs in my emotions anymore. And this is one of the things for these traders who are thinking that life's just easy. All right, the market's just easy. I don't get really, really excited, and I don't get really, really sad, because I control my emotions. I've been through it so many times. There's been times that, don't get me wrong, I watch share prices fall through the floor. I'm like, Jesus God, what's happened? And then I watch them go up, and I'm like, oh, well, I kind of expected that. So it's kind of, yeah.
I want three pieces of, I don't like the word advice, but comments you could give to, there's a lot of people investing in the market at the moment. The market is quite strong, but markets come up, they also go down.
Yeah.
I'd love your three comments about investing in the market at the moment, good or bad,
See, I'll tell you a little bit about my thoughts. Right now, I feel like we're at the start of a super cycle. And the reason why I say super cycle is because there is so much liquidity in the system. There's so much stimulus going into the markets.
Yeah.
The Fed is not going to let it fall, especially when all this stuff with COVID is happening. So you're seeing a lot of money washing around. And so you'd expect that to continue. So, and what that does is creates inflation.
Yeah.
And a lot of that money, and I'm seeing my friends that are in staple businesses, staple industries, they're just collecting money. Like, those stimulus checks are going into their pockets, and they're going back into the system. These guys are going, buying things and spending. It's actually happening. I can see it with my own eyes. So at some point, the government not just Australia, but around the world, is going to go and spend a truckload of money on infrastructure to re-kick the economy, like, put people back into work. And when that comes in, what do they need? They're going to need
copper, nickel,
concrete, cement, anything to do with construction, anything to do with steel, copper, nickel, go through it all. Whatever commodity, whatever mineral you think, that is where I think it's going. Another one I'm really excited about is actually sand. Just construction sand, glass sand. When this infrastructure build comes from around the world, they're gonna need this stuff, and they're gonna buy it from Australia. So that's an industry I think people just probably haven't paid enough attention to, but it hasn't really kicked in yet. But it will and you'll see the prices of just normal construction sand on high purity silica go through the roof over the next couple of years. So that's something I look at. But pivot advice for markets, I think the most important thing for people to understand is it's better to stay calm and actually be rational. And I know most people don't use stockbrokers, right? I know people are just sitting on Twitter and writing stuff and whatever and doing their trades themselves. Just to be able to have someone to pick up before you do a trade, before you do an idea, pick up a phone and call somebody and say out loud what you're thinking of doing. I just say it out loud and see, and you'll put the test on you. Because if you sound silly to yourself, then you're probably doing something wrong, right? But if you sound smart, if you're like, wait a sec, that was really intelligent, I sold myself that idea. Don't just do it because your friend's doing it. Do it because you're like, you know enough information. You've gone, okay, this makes sense and this is logic and that's what's going to happen next. So you can pace the puzzle. You can see the next catalyst. Then go, okay, that's a really smart idea. I'm going to buy those shares or I'm going to sell those shares. Just doing it because someone else is doing it. Eventually you'll get caught because someone else could have sold to you.
Final question, Tolga. Final question.
Hit me.
What drives Tolga at the moment? You've been successful. You love the industry. You love backing people.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I had a guy. So yeah, well, I'll tell you a story. When I was 33 years old, I've done a couple of deals. I got a phone call from a guy who is the #1 private banker in Australia, private banker at Gina and Andrew Forrest. And he's like, Tolga, look, my office is across the road from your office. Why don't you come have a coffee with me? And I was like, all right. So I Googled this guy's name and I run across the street. I'm like, oh, I'll come. I'll just have a chat with you anyway. And he sits me down and he's like, he asked me this question. He goes, Tolga, because you've made 30, 40 million bucks. Do you feel rich? And I said, mate, to be honest, my life hasn't changed. I go, if I say rich, well, all I've got is my parents' a house to live in and some cars and stuff, but that's basically it. My life hasn't changed. I'm doing the same things I would do, the same friends I've got.
Yeah.
Well, why are you taking all this responsibility and all this risk? And I said, I sat back in the chair and I said, probably because I want to be right. I've told people this is what's going to happen and I want to be right. So what drives me is being as right as I possibly can. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to get them all right, but that's what makes me do what I do.
Yeah, that's interesting.
If I have information, I want to be able to say I made the right decision.
And it's not, for you, I don't think it's necessarily about the money. It's about seeing a project and backing it and saying, well, see, I was right. I was right.
Yeah, that's it. I want to get it right. Thanks, Kerry.
Listen, it's been absolutely great to chat to you. Let's chat maybe middle of next year. But you know what? For now, I really appreciate your time. There's some exciting times ahead of us, mate. It's been a joy to follow your journey, but also thanks for being my broker all those years ago.
It was my pleasure. Yeah. I love it when people say that. Thank you.